Hello, home gym community. This is Coop from Garage Gym Reviews, and I am reviewing a air bike today, one that is very under the radar, I think, from a company that I think is under the radar. This is the Vulcan Thrasher bike, and no joke, you have to wait for the full review to see my opinion, but this may top the Rogue Echo bike in my opinion. I'm not kidding. Stay for the full review, but I think this may be better than Rogue Echo bike. Let's get thrashed. Okay, so around here at Garage Gym Reviews, we review a lot of air bikes. It's kind of synonymous with garage gyms for conditioning. One reason is because they don't take up a lot of space. You can jump on them really easy, don't require any technique. They're motorless, they last a long time, and this bike epitomes a lot of those things because it's built to be a very durable bike and is also in a price range that is competitive with many others that are out there. This is an honest review, and just so you know, Vulcan sent this bike to us free of charge so I could give a review, and if you want to buy it, we'll put a link below the like button that you can check out. They'll pay us a small commission, but it won't increase the price you pay. I just like to make that clear in all of our videos. Now, we haven't reviewed a ton of Vulcan strength equipment on the channel. I've reviewed some of their plates, some of their bars. I've used their benches and other equipment, but specifically in-depth reviews. Vulcan, in many ways, just being honest with you, flies under the radar a lot of times. Their marketing isn't at the level of some other companies, so I just don't think about them often. But this one came across the radar at a great price. I've seen a lot of good reviews, both on their site and also on comments of you guys mentioning, Coop, you ought to review the Vulcan Thrasher, see how it compares to, say, the French Sport Raptor, or the Assault bikes, or the Rogue Echo bikes, or the C2 Bikers of the world, and that's what I'm going to do. Now, I want to say this is a stout bike, maybe the heaviest air bike that's on the market. That has a few positives and negatives. The positive is it's there. It doesn't move. You go all out like people like to do on air bikes, say you're doing a 10, 20 second interval or something in that nature, you are literally giving it all that you can. So you want a bike that gives it back, and this one does that. Because it weighs 137 pounds, that's a heavy bike. Just ask Sam, his back's broken. But 137 pounds is a heavy bike. It feels sometimes like it's bolted to the floor, it's so heavy. But that's very nice for those of you that want a bike that's just gonna stay where it's at, and you want something that's not gonna creak or go side to side. Of all the air bikes that I've used, this is probably one of the heaviest and most rigid. There's one out there from Zebex that is like 150 pounds that has a magnetic motor and is really just over the top. That may be a little bit more stout than this, but in reality, for most of you in the price range you're looking for, if you want something that's just extremely rigid, this is the one at 137 pounds. Just compare to some others that are out there, the Rogue Echo bike, which is traditionally the beefy boy, is 123 pounds. The Bells of Steel Blitz bike and the Raptor bike, 118 pounds or so. And then the Assault bike, which is kind of the one that a lot of people look to as a standard with the chain drive, most similar to Schwinn Airdyne, is 95 pounds. So this thing is heavy. That's nice for the stoutness, not nice for the maneuverability. It does have a handle on the back and wheels on the front that allow you to move it around, but I would just say if you're planning on taking this thing out of the garage and out into the driveway, like I like to do to get some beautiful vitamin D with your shirt off, this isn't the bike for that, I don't think. It does have a handle. I guess you could use it to deadlift for extra reps, but 137 pounds is pretty heavy. Now, one of the reasons it's so heavy is because it's mostly metal. There's very little plastic. There's some plastic shrouds and things like that, but this thing is heavy metal. There's metal all throughout it, steel all throughout it. In fact, to go along with the frame being stiff, just the connections from the handles to the arms to the pedals, everything that like that in that full connection, because when you press, say with the handles, that also spins the cranks. It is just dialed in. And part of that is because they're using heavy components and they're using nice components. Some air bikes, there's like some play, some like loose tolerances between all the parts, and so there's some jiggle that happens. This is not that way. If you press on the handle or press on the pedal, like it's just direct. So that metal is very nice, and it's nice that it doesn't have plastic, but the other reason that it's able to have that direct connection is the components on this are just very nice. So they're using bearings in between the slats that connect the cranks to the arms, which is very nice, and they just spin really well. Just overall, the componentry, the materials, all that. I'm just talking about the construction right now. The construction is just beefy. It's heavy duty and it's made to last. Now, one of the other things that like gives me a really solid signal that this is gonna be a bike that's gonna last is also the belt drive. So they're not using a chain drive on this. You guys know what I think about a chain drive. They work. I prefer a belt drive. They last longer, they're quieter. It's similar belts as what are used in cars. So they can break, but it doesn't happen very often. Just chains require some more maintenance. As for me and my home gym, we will have a belt drive air bike, and I recommend it to you as well. But because the components are very high quality, because the tolerances are very tight, and because it has a belt drive, this is a very quiet air bike. Air bikes are loud naturally because the resistance they're using are fan blades that are under the shroud. So that's making noise just wrapping around just like a fan. You don't want excess noise outside of that. Excess noise like creaking and just noise from metal hitting each other. This one doesn't have that. It is a very quiet air bike, and I think that leads to all the components they're using and also points to a bike that's well made and will last a while. One of the things I don't like about this is the Q factor, also known as the Quack Factor. Now this is something you're just like, what is the Q factor? I didn't really know what the Q factor was either until one of you commented on one of our previous videos and like, Coop, you should talk about the Q factor. So I'm like, Jim, what's the Q factor? The Q factor is the Quack Factor. Jim, what's the Quack Factor? The Quack Factor is basically the distance between the cranks. So if I was to measure the distance between the cranks, they call it Quack Factor because it's like when you bike, like it's kind of like a duck quacking. If it's wider, it kind of looks like you're walking like a duck more, I guess. But the tighter the distance to a point, typically the better. So a typical road bike or mountain bike is about 6 inches. These air bikes can get wide, and the reason that matters is because you're suddenly going from a more natural gait to like spreading it out. And like, I don't run like this personally. I'm guessing you don't either. I also don't like biking like this. I prefer it closer together. So because of that, I think the Q factor does matter. The Q factor on this is a wide boy. Out of all the air bikes that we've tested and reviewed, as I've said, this is one of the most stout and durable. The downside is it's heavy and hard to move around, and also it's really wide. The Q factor is almost 10 inches wide. It's 9 inches and 7/8 inches to be exact. For instance, just for comparison, the Rogue Echo bike is 8 1/8 inch. So quite a bit thinner. The ideal would be around 6 inches. That's what you're using on a road bike. So you gotta understand, the wider you go out, the more it will affect your gait. Now there are other companies that are a little bit less than that, say the Fringesport Raptor, which I really like, as well as the Bells of Steel Blitz bike. But the way that they connect the pedals, it feels like it's wider because there's a knob on the outside that your heel constantly clicks. So although this is wide, one thing that makes it a little bit better is they're using these really thick flat steel plates on the cranks. So rather than your heel hitting like a knob joint that's on the other bikes, you just like swipe against the side of the plate if it goes off to the side. So basically what I'm saying is I don't like the Q factor, it's too wide, but I think they did the best they could with the width that they have by having a big flat plate there. Now to the monitor, another thing I don't like. The monitor is just okay. It's got a phone mount. It's got basically your quick buttons that most of you use, like 10-second to 20-second interval rests or 20 to 10. Some of those just typical Tabata type workouts, as well as everything you'd want to track. The reason I don't like it, it's just okay. Almost all the air bike monitors are okay. The gold standard air bike, the Rogue Echo bike, it has, the version 3 at least, has a better monitor, I think, than this one, but they still pale in comparison to the Bike-Erg and the C2, the PM5 that they offer on those. I would love to see those retrofitted for these. So I would say, like most air bikes, the monitor works. It does have heart rate connectivity, but there are better monitors, I think, that could be available for these bikes. Now, one thing I do like about this is the handle positioning. Most air bikes, say the Rogue Echo bike, has a single handle that goes out front. I don't know why they don't add more handle options. The Schwinn 87 or 80 Pro definitely has my favorite handles out of any air bike. This one is second to that because it's offering multiple options. I like the height. If I want to do neutral grip, I can do neutral grip. It just feels really good. The length of travel is nice. It's not my favorite out of any that are out there, but I do actually prefer it over the Rogue Echo as well as the Assault bikes. Okay, now before I get into value, just a couple other points, like the comfortability. It's a very comfortable bike. Like that seat on there is made for my grandma. It's way too big, but I know a lot of people like that. I prefer a saddle because I ride a bike sometimes, and you know, you kind of just get used to your sit bones bones sitting on the saddle, your sit bones will not sit on this. It is all butt, baby. Like, this is a very voluminous padding on this. It feels comfortable if you're just jumping on, but one of the nice things about it is there is a ton of adjustability. This is gonna work for everybody from, say, somebody that's very small and petite to somebody that's very large and very tall, because the adjustments that are offered are very high and very low on the tube seat, but also they have a spring-loaded adjustment system for forward and backward travel of the seat that can be adjusted while you're on the bike, which is very nice. You don't have to get off if you're in the middle of set, or say you're using it in a commercial gym and somebody just got done using it, you're jumping on. The ability to just jump on and then adjust it while you're on it is very nice and seamless. One other thing just to mention about this bike that they don't have and that I don't love is there's really no add-ons for it. Basically, what you see is what you get. That's how most bikes used to be. Now, companies have realized people want additions. They like modularity, just like their squat racks. So, people want water bottle holders. They want windscreen guards. They want turf tires, all these sorts of things. That doesn't come with this. It does have a phone mount that is built into the monitor, which I don't like because it covers the screen, but they do have it. The one thing they don't have that I really wish they did is there's no windscreen. Now the frame kind of blocks the wind from coming, but not all the way. So if you're somebody who works out in your garage gym in the dead of winter, it's really cold and you like using an air bike, just understand your legs will get cold with this one, unless you DIY something. Now to the value. This is where I think the rubber meets the road. This is $846 with free shipping. For comparison, I think the bike that's most comparable is the Rogue Echo bike, which is $845. Just to be clear, both of these are imported bikes. So just because it's got Rogue's label on it, that bike is imported as well as this one. They are both made of heavy-duty metal. Both are very heavy. Both have decent monitors. Really overall, if you just like coupe, which one would you get? Surprisingly, like this honestly surprised me, I'd get this one. I really think this is better than the Rogue Echo bike. I think they're really similar. One of the differences is Rogue Echo bike has been around a long time in a lot of hands, and it's just extremely durable. This hasn't been in that many gyms. So because of that, I can't say definitively that this is gonna be as durable or more durable. But what I can say from using it, from the components, from how tight the tolerances are, everything like that, like this is a dang good bike for $846. Now, there's other bikes out there you should consider. If you'd like to see us compare this to any others or would like a new roundup of the best air bikes for 2023, let me know in the comments and we'll get it out. But I will say, if you're looking at the higher echelon of priced bikes, for me, it's between this one, it's between the Schwinn 80 Pro, which is quite a bit more expensive, so I think for most people, it doesn't necessarily make sense, and the Rogue Echo bike. And amongst those, this thing is dang good. Now, if you want to spend a little bit less, the Blitz Air bike, that's another one I'd recommend, but it's a little bit cheaper, and I definitely prefer this one over that one. Okay, that's my review. This one surprised me. Would you like to see any other Vulcan Strength reviews? If you'd like any specific reviews on Vulcan Strength, let me know in the comments. We have another one potentially on a rower that they've got. We just got it in, I want to try it, but if you'd like to see that, let me know, or this compared to any others. This has been Coop from Garage Gym Reviews. I'll see you next time. Peace.